All right, all right, all right. Good evening. Welcome back once again. This is Amuna. I pray everybody's doing well. Not so hyped today. Maybe I'll get hyped as the time goes on. What a long day. It's a beautiful day. I pray everybody's doing well wherever you are. Pray you having a beautiful day. I said, let me come on here real quick before I get into this homework. Um, how are you doing? There's a lot of stuff going on now, and it's happening so rapidly. Okay, there's a lot of things that are changing. There's a lot of pressure that's being applied. There's a lot of testing of morale and what people have said over the time. There's a lot of things coming into fruition, both good and bad. So sometimes you just got to check in and be like, oh, how you doing, how you holding on. For those who are in the medical field, uh, who are in hospitality sectors, that's receiving some pressure right now. you know each one of us have to find within ourselves some resolve, some whatever it is that you are resolved to do. Stick with it. You know what I mean? I've been saying this, checking on the people I know who are in certain fields, because right now the pressure is on. There are going to be some, choosing between this and that, and sometimes when we're pressured by people who seemingly have more authority than we do, more power than we do, we tend to make decisions under stress or duress. That's what's happening right now. Being pushed and pressured to make, coerced into making decisions. And this can apply in relationships. This peer pressure from school, from work culture, peer pressure. This people telling you that something is in the paperwork when it's not, leading us to believe whatever they want us to believe, so that we'll make the choice that they want us to make. But at the end of the day, as it relates to a lot of what's happening right now, what I learned in life is somebody could try to convince you. They can create an environment for you to make the choice that they want you to make. But at the end of the day, whatever choices we make or do not make, we have to deal with those. Yeah. Um, People may say, if do this or this and this is going to happen. And the this and this are all of the things that we hold dear: family, living somewhere, having food to eat, all of the things we hold dear. And the assumption is, and this is like a little prelude to the conversation, the assumption is that if we do those things, then if we want those things, then we have to comply with what somebody's telling you, not realizing that ultimately, because you succumb, or you're succumbing to this pressure, that you're just kicking the can down the road. Really. Sorry. You're just kicking the can down the road. And so what you think you're securing, it's actually going to be something else in a later time. This happens in relationships. I just want you to do this one thing. Sorry. It's against your better judgment. It's against what you know to do, but you do it because you want to keep the peace. Next thing you know, they say, oh, I can get you to bend. I'm not talking about compromise. I'm not talking about an even exchange. I'm talking about a dictatorial type of environment. I'm talking about one person's will being superimposed on somebody else's will. That's very different than, this is why conversations on communication, conversations on boundary, conversations on power dynamic, all of these things are very interesting, because they show up in all aspects of our life. Right. And so the reality is, like what's going on in New York today, the mandated something that you can, for someone else's body, the mandate that, hey, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then you don't have any job. But the reality is, if you're injured because of X, Y, and Z, the joke, I'm gonna call it, if you're injured, if you're compromised, that same person that forced you to do it, they're not showing up. Mm-mm. They're not showing up. They're not showing up. They're not coming through, because there's no liability. There's you know what I'm saying? They are absorbed of all liability from the top to the bottom. So yeah, the person made you do it, but at the end of the day, you're assuming all risk. That's a bad business deal. Everything is an exchange. Right? Everything is an exchange. So one is saying, and if we step back just a little bit and not allow ourselves to be consumed with everything that's being said, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, right? This is not an easy choice. I'm talking to those who may be struggling right now, who have questions. You got family in your ear like this. Their choice is not going to be easy, but I may not be the person who to talk to because I live my life not making the easy choices. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm like, what? I just like making hard choices. But, it's not going to be easy in the beginning. It might be some uncomfortability there. There might be some adjustments that needs to be made. You might need to broaden your perspective. You might need to look in other spaces of how you're going to make a living if that's what's really the concern. Because if somebody says to you, it doesn't matter who it is, I want you to compromise yourself in this way, and you are the only one that's going to hold the bag, you got to be like, wait a minute, this is not adding up, right? And a lot of people are having regret, they're having remorse, and they're having real life, and it's not propaganda, they're having real life effects from doing something that they felt compelled to do or they were forced to do. And at this time, it's really coercion. It's really trying to force people into doing stuff under duress. And I mean, how could we not have that kind of conversation? Let me know. Can you guys hear me? Because hold on one second. I didn't even check the comments. Let me know if you could hear me in the comment section below. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, let me know if you can hear me. So that's kind of what I wanted to say on that. That it's getting like Twilight Zone out to it is crazy out here in these streets, bro. And again, it's easier said than done. QCTV, what's going on? It's easier said than done, but the reality is, it's that time. Pressure. It's pressure time. There was something that and I'm teaching this lesson to my daughter. It may seem easier in the beginning to just give people what they want. No. No. If it's not just because you're just trying to be unruly, and no, but some things you have to have the foresight to be like, wait a minute. If I comply with this, what is going to be next? That to just play along because it makes me feel comfortable. There's a time that make pretend and make believe comes to an end. You know what I mean? Everybody has different levels, especially in religious spaces, conscious spaces. It's interesting to just watch, as sometimes may be more adept in book knowledge, and not only just this, intellectual spaces, you may be more adept in book knowledge, but when the real life pressures come on, you get to see what the soul is really made of, who the person is. Are we living in fear? Are we trusting? If you're trusting, who are you trusting in? There's a lot of people that have pulled people away from their base, from the source of the creator, who you can put your trust in, and trust in knowledge. Now what? To trust that there is a bigger plan for us all, and that we all work together or not in this plan to make things come about. So I just wanted to put that out there, that be careful how we acquiesce to certain type of movements towards a certain goal, because make no mistake about it, there is a goal in mind. So when it first happened, and I was making last year, in my own spaces, I'm just like, nah, I'm not done with that. And it's like, oh, please, and I'm just sitting back watching everybody who have the biggest, the biggest talks. I'm just talking about in real time, not the internet, but in real time, people with the biggest talks just acquiesce. This was before. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? You know what I mean? And so there was some workarounds that I'm like, I'm not putting on that. I'm not doing that. So I just moved with some workarounds until we see that here comes another round of something, and here comes another round of something, and here comes another round of something. And, the blind can see. Stevie Wonder know what time it is. Something ain't too right in the pot. Something ain't too right in the pot. So stay woke, y'all. Stay woke. I mean, sleep, but stay woke. Because if you stay woke for too long, you don't sleep. In real life, you get like what happened to me yesterday. And let me go transition into the conversation. And you don't get the adequate sleep. You kind of start getting loopy. Okay. So yesterday I was supposed to be sleeping, because we shall all be trusted. That's absolute facts, sis. That's absolute facts. And some people spend more time saying that they ready than actually getting ready. And as soon as the tests pop up, think while it's still legal. What's going on, India Beat? When things pop up, all of a sudden people start transforming. You know what I'm saying? Getting looking like Decepticons out here. You're like, wait a minute, wasn't you the one? Who, blah 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 blah. It's for us to see what's in our heart. You know what I'm saying? It's for us to see where we need to firm up at. But what's happening is that we're following a lot of people who got a lot of mouth. Da, 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 da. 50 hour time start live streams, internet banging, blah 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 blah. And when they log off, you don't know that person. When they log off, you have no idea who that person is, how they acquiesce in real life, how they bow down. You have no idea. But they just helium ballooned you. Bam, 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 bam. And you're like, yeah, yeah. And then they want to go in the supermarket. I saw the craziest thing today, y'all. I guess this is just free mic because I saw the craziest thing. That they're taking the food. They ran up on a lady. You know, New York have the vendors who do the fruits, especially in the summertime. You have the fruits and they sell the fruits. And they rolled up to the lady vendor. I don't know who you saw, and just started dumping all her food. I'm like, yo, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on? What is going on? It's not okay just to be like, oh, I'm just concerned with me and mine, because there's a time where it's gonna get beyond what you think is just you and yours. And you have family and you have friends who I always knew they was weird. They had stopped eating meat a long time ago. Yeah, I think something made too. That's what I mean. This is how crazy the Twilight Zone is getting out here in these streets. You understand what I'm saying? It's getting, especially if you're in some spaces where that's what time it is. And New York just happens to be one of them places. And I kind of saw New York was not the place to be. Like when I left, like over a decade ago, I was like, whoa, ooh, look at the time. Because the whole schematics of the spot it's bad for business. Every place is an island. Shout out to my New York family. But Brooklyn is basically an island. Long Island is an island. Queens is only connected to Brooklyn and Long Island. The only place connected to the mainland, and Staten Island is an island. So the only place connected to the mainland is the Bronx. It's a bad setup. It's a bad setup. What's going on, Truthful Perspective? So yeah, I think that silent reflection, for us to be honest about where we are, how we respond to certain things may be more of a trigger for us than other things. Some people may have built up lives that it requires constant, because there's so much there. There's so much debt. There's so much this. Hey, Nyasha, what's going on? There's so much of all of these things. Yeah, well, yes, Queen C. Absolutely. 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 Remember we had to read that book in school, The Diary of Anne Frank. If y'all have not read that book, maybe they got like the audio book. I don't remember. I know it's been a long time ago, but it's looking like some Anne Frank vibration going on around here. Yeah, but they threw her food away because that not having a vendor license doesn't. I feel you. It wasn't not having a vendor license doesn't mean the food is bad. Like it's crazy. Yep, it's in the food deserts, and there are a lot of food deserts in the city. There's a lot of food, and that was a lot of food. That was a lot of food. They was thrown away. I saw the dude like throwing the watermelon in the joint. I was like, yo, bro, you doing the absolute most. But as we can see, that's where we at right now. There was a movie that was put on to a very long time ago. It's an old movie from the 70s. Tell me if you guys seen What's the Secret of Soylent Green. You ever seen that movie? What's the Secret? It was like an old time movie, yeah? What's the Secret of Soylent Green? And it had to do with food, the real food. Having access to real food became an issue, and only the privileged had access to real food, and the other people were in groups and droves in the streets. I think it's set in New York as well, trying to get this Soylent Green, because that was how they sustained. They didn't have jam, they didn't have fruits, they didn't have only the rich could afford that. You know what I mean? I don't know why that thing brought it to my mind. Like, and so the movie was about, well, what's in this Soylent? What is the Soylent Green? What is the stuff they handing out to people? I'll leave you to come back and tell me if you remember what was going on in that movie. But it was crazy, let's just say. So some of this stuff that we are being fed, it's not food. If you could throw away food, not that the food is corrupted, not that the food is poisoned, because somebody doesn't have a monetary vendor license, there is a disconnect. How long does it take to grow a watermelon? How long does it take to grow bananas? How long does it take to grow strawberries? If you can throw away with, at the same time saying that there are all of these hungry people in the world, not never mind the world, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, and wherever you are, in Mississippi, in Alabama, there's all of these hungry people. But because somebody didn't pay $100 vendor license, you're going to throw and discard this. It ain't adding up, bro. There's a disconnect somewhere. The internet is on one band. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. And shout out to the Facebook family. For some reason, I have to find out why I'm not seeing the Facebook comments. I know y'all probably over there commenting. That's another thing for me to figure out. So that's just my thoughts and observations on there. Bigger things that are going on in and around us that we need to stay awake on. Yeah, McDonald's is crazy. You seen the McDonald's experiment when they put it under the jar and they keep it there for years and it doesn't decompose and the bread doesn't mold and the fries don't, it's like still there. You know what I mean? So understand that for a long time, when I was trying to let my children know, this was years ago, I was like, why did you do that? Sometimes when you're growing up a little different, they may think like, you holding me back in life. And I never want to be that person, be like, I'm holding you back. So I like to educate. So I let them watch Super Size Me. Remember that? The Super Size Me documentary where the guy decides to eat McDonald's for 30 days and his doctor advises against it. And he wanted to see what would happen to his body if he ate 3 meals from McDonald's, basically every meal from McDonald's for 30 days, 3 times a day. By the end, but before the end, the doctor was like, yo, you getting a fatty liver. You got to stop this. He went from vibrant and full of life to by the end, he was like a sludge. He was like sludge. Okay. So definitely there are things out here that is not good for us. And it's not about hype. And what happens is because some of the people who are representing a different choice are kind of either shoving it down our throats, but they may have, or they may have the food element, but they don't have the other elements. People use that as an excuse not to do it. You know what I mean? And so in this space and time that we're entering into, things like self-discipline, things like practicing, basically before a time such as this may arrive, practicing is going to be very important. Implementing these things willfully in your life, fasting intermittently, learning to drink your tea without sugar, you know what I mean? Learning how to prepare the smallest things that can feed your family. All of these things are important. When you look at or study the Civil War and you see when in America, when they were having a civil war and communication broke down and commerce broke down and they weren't able to get coffee and they weren't able to get certain things, that's where a lot of human ingenuity came out. I think, what were they using for coffee again? It's been a while. They was using something else because they couldn't get the coffee in. It's a whole lot of adjustments that had to be made because you don't have access to the things that you usually have access to. It's live, Nigel. It's live. It's live. You get access to things you don't usually have access to. And if you haven't governed yourself, if you haven't learned to manage yourself, as I like to say, then you're going to be miserable. I mean, the conditions are going to make one miserable, but being miserable is a state of mind. Oftentimes, is a state of heart because you may be just spoiled. Grown, spoiled individuals. I gotta have my latte. I gotta have my blah blah blah. I gotta have my ba 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 ba. Queen tea, wagwan. I gotta have this, that. Tara Watts it not. I don't like that. I should say. You gotta have all of these things, and you haven't prepared your mind mentally for being more fit, getting more exercise. You know what I mean? All of these little things that really seem little until they're big, and That's just my thoughts on that. You know what I mean? Right now, it's time to stay woke. It's time, exactly, discipline, awareness, discernment. Because what in the world? The pressure's on. Exactly, Nasha. The pressure right now. New York has to what? 12 o'clock. There's a homegirl told me a whole unit walked off, nurses and everybody in New York, because they say I'm not doing it. So the preparation is, oh, I'm going to show you. You know what I'm saying? Proactive, exactly. I'm going to show you. Oh, you're not going to do it? I'm going to show you. Now, we know that this model is not sustainable because the people are the ones who are making this whole thing go round. You know what I mean? But it's going to be, it's a power move. You're going to get pump faked. I saw the new governor of New York talking about, I'm going to bring in Filipinos, bruh. I thought we was in a whole pandemic. How you bringing in? Now she's like, I'm bringing in National Guards. I'm like, to be the nurse? You know, I know we see it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I know it's tempting to not pay attention to all that's going on, but it's kind of hard. Okay? It's kind of hard. So, get that sun, get your vitamin D, boost your immune system. Thank you, Queen T. Take supplements, plant gardens, make food boxes. Get your vitamin D, boost your immune system, back off some stuff that you know is not good for you. Start to clean up the self-help area. You know what I mean? Clean that up if you haven't already, because you're going to need your health. We're going to need our health. Saw something saying they all lose their jobs tomorrow. Yeah. Wow. Your own sister is stuck in. Wow. Yeah. Because there's some people who, all right, there's a common play, right? Is we see it in Hollywood when people go in, yeah, share the video, like the video, all that stuff. We see it in Hollywood when people go in, they give you the dangle the carrots. So you want the fancy dresses, you want the whips, you want the car, you want the money. Okay, then you have to do this thing. Usually the thing that they're asking you to do is compromising your integrity, breaking your inner compass. You feel me? So that now these things have sway over you. These things are what makes you who you are. So it is when we go into and try to make a living. A lot of people are doing jobs that they otherwise wouldn't want to do, but they want to stay alive. So they went into this job because it paid more money, and they went into this job because mother said so, father said so. And then you build a whole life, some reluctantly, you build a whole life where, especially here in foreign, I mean, on the mainland, where everything is, oh, you want a phone? That's $50. You want such and such? That's $100. Everything is money, 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 money. Few people who own their house outright. You know what I'm saying? Few people who have the things that you need, like free donuts. You know what I mean? Few people who can say, yo, I don't have to do that. So many people are already caught. They're already chasing the rabbit, because the whole life that we flash on TV, the whole car, all of that is month to month. You're a day laborer. You don't really own it. You still got $20,000 on the loan. You still got $100,000 on the house. You still got all of these things that you have to pay for. So when somebody says do this or else, and you're already on the treadmill, that feels like pressure, right? Do this or else all of the house of cards is going to fall. And people start saying, well, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I understand. It's not like, oh, it's easier said than done. But at certain point, if you say you have your house, your car, your kids, your family, husband or your wife, then the question becomes, if something happens to you, then what happens to them? So that's the part that the people who are trying to convince us to do things are not taking into consideration. If I don't, something's going to happen. But if I do and something happens, then what will become of them, right? What will become of me? And so, you know, it's not going to be the easiest choice to make. Mayor decided to give them till Friday to at least get a dose of he said, don't show up to work on Monday. Well, they trying to, it seems like a crash of the system to me. It's that's gonna crash everything, and that may be what the intention is. It may very well be. Just saying. The hospital systems is going to take a nosedive because you're telling me to save somebody else, I have to harm myself. What's that? Where we doing this at? Where we doing this at? You know. So what was I gonna say? Oh, the video. The name of this video. What's the name of the video again? Y'all know, crazy how family fuss and fight. Oh, so yesterday, I've been trying to finish studying this test, right? So I did the test yesterday, and I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm just gonna take a day off. Then I just got 2 more weeks to finish these tests. So I see one of the channels on YouTube, okay, and I've been kind of following this Polite story, this Dr. York story. For those who may know, you know, and I may comment here and there. And so I've been following the story, and so the girl, the woman in one of the stories, she is interviewing on Moorish World TV, okay. So I'm like, okay, let me listen to this interview because I think it's interesting to hear when conflict arises and how we, the people, deal with conflict and how we're able to get past it or not, right? So she's sharing her thought process and her position from what she experienced, okay? Then an interesting phone call comes in, and this is where it was late too. It was way past my bedtime. An interesting call comes in, and the call is from the brother who some reference was made to. And it made me to think that oftentimes when either family, corporate, wherever, we have a relationship, whatever it's established, we're having a relationship, we're interacting. But we're all on different points of the circle. And we came into the conversation at different times, yeah? So if this particular person who calls in is her older brother, and he wants to answer some of the claims that she's making, it was just an interesting dynamic to watch and watch how it unfolds. And one of the things that was revealed is that the brother is 10 years her senior. That would have meant that a lot of the things, the part of the story that she entered into, she may not have had all of the answers because she's coming in later down in the story. It's like your favorite story already just started on TV or the movie, and somebody else was there from the credits was rolling, and you got there 15 minutes later. What are you saying? What did I miss? Think about, I'm talking about how we are relating to family and relationships and communication. So just stay with me. I'm just using this as an example because it's real time, right? So she is sharing her experience from her perspective. And just because we're related to somebody, that we are close in proximity in relation to that person, does not mean we're having the same experience. So some of the contention that happened on the platform as I'm watching and listening is that now the two experiences are clashing. One person is saying, I don't remember that. So intrinsically, the other person is saying, well, you're calling me a liar, right? And so you have this thought process of, because you don't or did not experience it exactly the way I did, then you're denying my reality. Now you start fussing and you start bickering and you start arguing. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, why is this breaking down? Because we make a lot of assumptions. We assume that because we're related to someone, that person is your mother, that person is your father, that person is your brother, is your sister, is your aunt, that they're having the same exact experience as you are. No. We're also assuming that if something was big and monumental in our life or impacted us in a certain way, that it may have impacted someone else in the same way. The answer also to that is no. It doesn't necessarily mean that. So when we are starting to fuss and bicker, I'm listening, although I think that's what kind of kept me up. It was, and the host was like, okay, one person speak at a time, right? Because if two people are speaking and they're just clashing, you can't hear what the problem is, right? You can't hear what's going on. You can't hear where the point of contention is. Neither can you hear where you agree. And if we don't know where we agree, then we don't even really know why we're arguing. Or if we're not clear on where we disagree. And part of the reason why we begin to fuss and fight and argue on a grander scale is because emotions come in. And that's what happened in the video. So at first I'm like, okay, the host is doing better than most. He's keeping it calm. He's keeping people, allowing everybody to speak, allowing everybody to say their piece, all stuff I would have done. But now when the host gets emotionally entangled in the back and forth, he becomes disjointed to a certain degree. And he in turn, when you're not a host, you're supposed to be kind of neutral. He now takes it onto himself and hangs up on one of the parties, because he feels slighted. And I'm just looking at, again, communication, how it breaks down, why it breaks down, and if and how and why we don't deal with these type of things, we can't move forward. I was talking to a sister the other day, and I've said this on this channel before, that there's an elder named Dr. Edwin Nichols. He's been on fleet. He's been all over. He's an elder, okay? He's a colleague of Dr. Joy DeGruy. He's been on Philippe Matthews. I've been over there on Philippe Matthews as well. Shout out to Philippe. I haven't been over there in a while, but you already understand. So he talks about his life's work. And this is just specifically to understanding, if that is our objective, how we fuss and fight, why we fuss and fight, and why it stops the construction of the building. Okay, so I'll use construction because there's a lot of construction going on around here. I don't know if it's going around where you are, but it's a lot of construction. And I know that it's not everyday people building these houses. But anyway, side note. So say we come together and we say, let's build this house. Let's accomplish something together, right? Let's do something together. We say, let's build this house. You know how to do, you know how to lay the bricks. I know how to do the pipe. You know what I'm saying? I know how to do the plumbing. You know how to do the electricity. Let's build this house. You agree to do something. As the house is being built, an issue comes up. I'm telling you, no, don't pour the concrete right there because X, Y, and Z. And then you have another perspective. Oftentimes what happens with us is because we disagree and we don't know how to resolve it, somebody may go home and argue to their mate. They may say that I can't work with this person. And then next thing you know, they quit. They quit, right? You need them to finish building the house and they quit before the house can even get off the ground, literally, because they don't feel as though they're being respected. And so we can no longer, and that's how oftentimes Dr. Edwin Nichols shares that people from the African space deal with one another in this collaborative way, where another nationality may be more interested in the fact that this house is complete, which would be Asiatics. This is his theory, and I'm just sharing it because I thought it was interesting ever since I heard it. So people have different value systems, right? So because of the environment that they're coming from, because of their experience, and because of how they had to survive in life, you have different value systems, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. So if we understand our value system, then we can understand how we communicate, why we communicate, and what happens when we don't communicate effectively, and why it's so important, why there's no progress, and why we keep looking like we skating backwards. And you look at, why does the Asians could come and build up? I don't understand. And you may look at Indians, why can't they do this? But there's all of this conversation and there's this confusion. And I think Dr. Edwin Nichols, in my estimation, has a part of this puzzle. I've said it before, because our value system is different. If you have a Eurocentric value system, and he goes into how, in his theory, these value systems were created and why, right? But according to him, the Eurocentric value system is more object oriented. So the house is not necessarily to protect you. The house is not to make sure that everyone has some place to live. The house becomes this object that they can barter to get more resources. So when you don't have an object oriented value system in an object oriented value system place, meaning you're the best to ever do it, I'm number one, I'm MVP. In another space, everybody who worked together is going to be lifted up. And in one space, only one person gets to be this top person to survive, right? Why is this important when we're having the conversation? Because when I was listening to what they were having the conversation about and some of the contentions, it was that in this Western world, their father, by the way, their father was Malachi Z. York. Their father implemented a value system that elevated the haves and the have-nots among his own children. When they said that, I was like, this is a whole Solonomic session, right? And so one of the contentions is the perception from the younger is that you belonged to the haves. The brother belonged to the haves, and she belonged to the have-nots. So we know that the haves potentially live a better life than those who have not. This is what we're experiencing right now, separating two groups into the haves and the have-nots, the vac and the vac-nots. You understand? It's this is why I'm going, because it all interconnects. What that creates inside of our mind, like what we're experiencing now, is a disconnect from one another. Now we can only, right, communal versus individualism. Now we can only rock with, now your group becomes they're the other, the person who is not doing what you're doing. Even if that's your brother, even if that's your sister, even if that's your mother, whomever it is, because now you have to build a whole narrative around how you're more better and how you're more virtuous than that person because they choose to breathe air or they choose to put on the mask. There's a mind game being played. So I thought it was a great parallel. It kept me up, but I thought it was a great parallel between and what's happening now. And usually the person who's doing that, it's about power. The person, the system, whomever it is, who's doing that, it's about power, because outside of the haves and the have-nots is somebody who's holding the levers to ensure that one has and one has not. So there's a third party in this conversation that oftentimes is, you know, in the background behind a little curtain doing what it is they do. And it can happen in families. It can happen in work environment. It can happen in churches and religious organizations. You can be pastor's pet and you get everything you need and want. And the other person who may be questioning pastor, who not too sure, that person gets to be treated, you know, or like the worse than. And that causes contention amongst the people who are involved. That causes a level of infighting. And if we're not able to come to the table, let me put the link in if somebody want to share, because I'm gonna wind down. What time is it? If we're not able to come to the table and have the conversation about what we thought we saw, what we know we saw, and what you saw, if we're not able to have these conversations, then you carry fear, or you carry animosity, or you carry resentment. You carry all these things in your heart for years and years and years because you never had the conversation. Now, there's some people who don't want to have the conversation because we become so dysfunctional. Having a conversation feels wrong, right? The arguing doesn't feel wrong. The rational coming to the table and having the conversation and being transparent and honest, now that becomes wrong. That's if you are in an environment where communication breakdown is the issue. So you're looking for the Claire Huxtable moment, you know, where she sits down and let me talk to you. And you're looking for that moment, but you never see that moment. You may be amongst a family who all they do is talk of you. They talk at you, even in your presence. They don't address you. They don't know how to come and sit down and say, hey, this is what's going on with me. What are your thoughts? Or it's just one way. It's, I am displeased with you, and you get to say nothing. Your house is not going to be built, right? If you look at the story of the Tower of Babel, what is the first, what got confused? What got confounded? The language. The language. The language got confounded. And what happened? That tower the tower got destroyed. Once the language gets confounded, once we are confused, once we are not able to effectively communicate, it's not going to be progress in the way in which we think. So we may overlook it. We may think that it's not that important, but it definitely is. When you look at relationships and why they no longer work, if somebody's communicating or transmitting to you, but what you're receiving is making you feel a kind of way, making you feel uncomfortable, and you can't tell them that, breakdown in communication. At some place, somebody's going to shut down. Now, one of the common threads that I heard yesterday, and it also pops up with many of the closed circuit communities that I have studied in over the years. And I was like, there it goes again. One of the things that came up and continues to come up in a lot of closed circuit communities is that it's a, even though you're protected from the outside world, now you become someone who feeds on those people in the community. So to a certain degree, it becomes cancerous because you lock off oxygen from the outside world, right? And you insulate yourself in this community. And oftentimes it's masculine energy. We can go there another day, that then grabs the power. I saw it in the Mormons. I see it in Hebrew Israelites. The ones who went to Ben Amidim, who went to Israel. I'm seeing it in the Dr. York conversation. I'm seeing it in Jim Jones conversation. In all of these conversations, there's usually a charismatic leader who encourages people to say, I'm going to bring you to a better place and I'm going to give you a better life. And all you got to do is follow me. Just don't think, right? And then usually there's an exploitation of feminine energy. I'm just keeping it honest. And the children, as well as people who went to Guyana back in the day. So there's usually going to be an exploitation of the feminine energy and the young children. The worship of man. Yep. Right. So there's certain things that when they're repeated, you're going to get the same result. You're going to get the same result. I see it with every organization, sis. Every organization. And you get the absolute same result. So to a certain degree, how does one maintain community without bringing yourself into a closed circuit space in which ultimately there's going to be some level of corruption, especially if there are no checks and balances in place? And oftentimes we're entering into a closed loop. Although it seems open, it's becoming more and more closed, where there's unchecked power dynamic, and one person now is going to become the prey and the other person is going to become the predator. This is where we're entering into. How do you deal with those things? These are real-time things. Y'all talk back to me now. I'm not hyped right now, but yeah, the same fruit every time. Every time. Show me one that does not. Every time. And yet, because we want to escape the uncomfortableness of our reality, we put our trust into it only to be shown that this is not what it is. It is not what it is. It's not what they said it was going to be. And it happens every time. It happens every time. So maybe that's not the answer. Is that how we were intended to live? You know? So I know I jumped around a little bit, but definitely that communication piece of just watching how people for many years have certain thoughts that they were not able to speak to the person is different. And that was what I also watched with this brother and sister, is that it was easier to speak about the person, right? But when the person showed up and they were like, is that really the person? It's like, yep, it's the person. If this is your brother and he actually shows up, now you have to speak to that person. Well, sometimes you can speak at them still, but they were speaking to. One seemed like he was speaking at. He seemed like he was more speaking at her, and she was speaking to him. And there is a difference between speaking at somebody and speaking to somebody, right? And sometimes when we're in these different agreements, it's easier to play this storyline that we made up in our own mind, in our head. It's easier. Yeah, this person did me this person da-da-da. And you just keep looping. You just keep playing it like your favorite song. You just keep playing it over and over. And you're actually believing this. This became your experience. And when you see the person and you're having a conversation, if you even get to that point, and they're like, well, I don't remember that. Now we take that as a personal insult. What do you mean you don't remember? Are you saying I'm lying? I don't know how many people have had that experience, especially if you try to approach a parent who either doesn't want to or didn't even log those experiences because they were the giver. They're the ones who were doing it. And if you try to approach a parent in that way, they will make you feel like, like you're crazy. Because for you, especially in those formative years, like we spoke about before, you were present. It made an impression on you, right? But because you were the receiver, you processed it in a different way. And so when you come to a parent trying to, let's say, clear up some of your experiences or heal, as everybody's saying, you may end up getting more injured or re-injured. They take the Most High out and focus on man worship. Yep. Cursed be the man who put his trust in men. That's what it's saying. That's what it says. Yeah, that's what it says. So there's a saying that says teeth and tongue are gonna meet, right? Like people are gonna argue, they're going to have disagreements. But how do we deal with them? Am I just over obsessing in this area, or is there a real issue in this area? To show you the clapback, we have a culture where somebody says something and then they be like, the clapback is real. So somebody says something and hit you a kind of way, you felt the kind of way, before you reach out to the person who reaches out and say, hey, can I talk to you? That person is the sucker. Look at it. But if you clap back, then you this tough guy. So we encourage dysfunctionality. We encourage the clap back. We encourage dysfunctional communication. We encourage all of these things. You get street cred for that type of behavior. But if you try to not get into an argument, if you try to see the other person's perspective, then you're soft. And where has that gotten us? If you look at a lot of groups, the music groups, they get together, they do all of these things, and eventually you can't sing like old Eddie Kane. Eventually you got Eddie Kane in the 5 Heartbeats. That used to be my movie. I watched that movie. A little dated, but you already know. You can't sing like old Eddie Kane. Nights like this. Next thing you know, you like Eddie Kane out there. I wish. He doesn't need anybody. Communication breaks down. This person trying to steal my money. Person trying to do this. Next thing you know, you Bobby Brown in New Edition. You know what I mean? We see it over and over and over. Who did I say? Next thing you know, you Lauryn Hill and the Fugees. After all of these years, now they're gonna come together. They had a communication breakdown. They had issues in the relationship. Boom, no more Fugees. I saw the other day they doing concerts. You know, time and slim pockets will make you start coming together, won't it? I'm to the point where I just don't feed the energy. It's exhausting. It sure is. I'm with you, Quincy. I'm with you on that one. I feel like, for real, what are we doing right now? What are we doing? In real time, something was brought to my attention from a long time ago. And I said, I want to talk to this. I want to speak to this issue. I want to I want to be present in the moment. And most people I talk to is like, why are you doing that? Just leave it alone. And I'm like, well, if it's still an issue, then it doesn't matter how much time goes by, it's still going to be an issue. So it would be advantageous to address it as opposed to just letting it continue to fester. But because we've been walking with the limp for so long, Quincy said, you win, I'm out. You got this, I'm good. You know what I mean? Because we've been walking with the limp so long, that vulnerability of coming to the table is, let me just say, hopefully I see it materialize as, you get more new people with leveled up energy into your space. But in historically, no. It may not be your case. Your case may be like people just sweep things under the rug. They don't even talk about it. They don't even act like nothing happened, right? And that's what a lot of these molestation charges and complaints is, that when people know of things, they act like nothing ever happened. One of the things I want to speak to that is that people who have to sweep things under the rug oftentimes feel disempowered. They feel as though if you do say something, nothing's going to happen. If you do say something, you're going to risk being on the outside. If you do say something, you're going to risk being chastised. So they rather sweep it under the rug than address it. Because, if to get justice, to seek justice, you have to have some level of confidence that you're going to be heard. Somebody's going to hear you and they're going to actually do something about it. right? And it's weird for children that when they are children and you have parents in position who are supposed to be protector and provider, and parents know of these things that happen to their children and they don't go to bat for their children, it confuses the mind, it confounds the mind. What time is it? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I mean. I stayed up a little late for that conversation. I thought it was a good, not for the from the perspective of ooh, but from the perspective of watching how energy can shift and change when we get more information and when we learn things that we never knew. Because we may be holding a mentality of something and we've been missing the piece of the information. Some people have a predator spirit. Yep. And they want to dominate in any situation. They sure do. And some people do. I see sis in the spot. Hold on one second. Yep, some people sure do, sis. That's another conversation for another day. What's going on, sister? Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome.
How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I'm fine. You? I
I'm here. I'm
just,
here. I'm here.
I just love what you said about, when you talk to your own mother and she doesn't not. I have the same experience with my own mother. It's like, you know, because somehow, you know that she wasn't to blame for anything that happens to me, but you still have this anger on your own mother of not taking the action, of
Mm-hmm.
protecting me of sexual violence of anything else, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And somehow it is so painful when you hear her saying to me, I should get over it, or telling
Mm-hmm.
me, um, or telling me, or blaming even me for what happened, or telling me now you are a grown up, you have to deal with it yourself. And and it's hard, to just act as if nothing happened. But deep
Right.
down, I am still very angry that she did not take a call or called the person or called the family member who did it. Even if I
Right.
do not remember the people who did it, she did nothing, you know.
That and that's what happens, unfortunately. And my heart goes out to your experience. And oftentimes that is what one of the contentions of the child who's harmed is. If the parent is inactive in their mind, I can't speak for them, but just looking at the situation, if that person felt disempowered, like I was saying before, if that person felt as though they were not going to get justice and that they were going to be stepping out, taking a risk. I know it sounds crazy, but taking a risk for the child who does not have power themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like going to bat for someone that you know cannot provide you with the things that the person you would have to call out can. So people are in this level of survival mode. Parents is whomever, they go into survival mode and they begin to weigh, yeah, this thing is bad, but if I stand with this child, what do I stand to lose? House, car, family, whatever, whatever, whatever. And so they usually push it off on for lack of a better word, the weaker one in this power dynamic, this power struggle. They push it off on the weaker one, because they don't have the strength to box with the stronger one, the one who has the more power. If you can you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. But you still expect more from your own mother for the child.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you expect more. Absolutely. And this is like I said, even in the conversation I was listening to yesterday, it's some of the same stuff. You expect more from this parent or from this power figure or from this authority figure. And the reality is, at the end of the day, before they were our parents or before they were this person, that person, they were human. And that's not an excuse. That's just to understand how and why people can allow things to happen, um, even though they have a title, right? You have a title as parent, you have a title as principal, you have a title as governor, right? And you're allowing things to happen even though you have these titles. And all too many parents just They don't do what it is that they're supposed to do as a parent, and they just let the child take the hit. Sadly, sadly. And the part about get over it, to me, many times that's being said because bringing it up makes them now uncomfortable about what they didn't do, right? So the thought is that I didn't do it, but I don't want to take responsibility for not doing it, so I need you to stop talking about it. That doesn't, you know what I mean? And that's what sometimes we may not, we get re-injured by going to parents or caretakers to try to get more answers, especially if they're not in a space where they're ready to be honest with us about the part that they played.
Yes, thank you for, have the platform.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're welcome, sis. You know what I mean? It's a difficult, but it's real. These are the real things that are happening. Uh, but I found that if we step back a minute, and I know it's difficult, like I said, step back from the picture for a second and acknowledge that this person is my parent, but this person is also human. And they made a decision to preserve themselves as opposed to protecting me. And that hurts. That's damaging to the relationship. But then it allows me to begin to heal. Not necessarily because I'm giving them a pass, but because I'm acknowledging that this is where it's at. Because sometimes we may think it's personal. It's not. A lot of times it's personal for them. It's their issue. It's not our issue. It's not because you are Naasha, because I'm Amuna. It's not because of you, the personal soul. It's that person's insufficiency. You know what I mean? It's that person's bad decision making that's now reflecting on you because you materialized in their experience. It's like going to a store and somebody has an attitude. They had the attitude before you got there. You know what I mean? You didn't make them have an attitude. Like, they got up on the wrong side of the bed. So when you come, they're already just beasting on you, and you're like, "What? I don't even know you, lady." It's kind of like that. Parents do that. They project on their children, and children are so young, we internalize it and think it's us. And when we grow up, we're like, "Wait a minute, you did the same thing here, there, and there. It's not me, it's you." Because usually when we make bad decisions like that, you can look in our life and see other places where we made compromising or bad decisions. And then you get to realize that that's the shortcoming of that person.
And how do you deal with the pain?
Oh, the pain, I would say the pain is that you let it flow. I know it sounds counterintuitive, yeah? But for me, my experience is let the pain out. Because everything that goes in has to come out. Everything that goes in has to come out. Everything that go up has to come down. The reason why oftentimes we carry a lot of the pain is because when it's bubbling up to the surface, we either stop it or don't cry or let it out. You write it out, you draw it out, you paint it out, you talk it out, you allow it its passage, you allow it passes, and then you allow it to transform you. Because it can empower you if you allow it to do its natural course. For instance, the natural inclination for pain is to tense up. Yeah? The natural inclination for pain is to tense up. We constrict. So when we hold on and we're constricting, then the pain seemingly it gets worse. So even in giving birth, they say, open your mouth, breathe, relax, let oxygen come in. And when you relax, even though the pain it comes through waves, it comes through waves, it comes through waves, and then it goes out. The harder you hold on, the harder you constrict, and the harder you tighten, is the more it hurts. That's why after a good cry, we feel a release, because we let it go. You understand what I'm saying? So give yourself permission to speak it out, draw it out, write it out, talk it out. Whatever it is that it is your way in which you can express yourself, allow yourself permission to let those thoughts and emotions move through.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And may you be strengthened in this time. I know it's difficult, but it can definitely be done to where uh, it becomes less and less of a burden, right? It's never going to totally disappear, the negative experiences that we've had. You know what I mean? Especially if there was no justice, especially if nothing was really done, if there was no resolve. There's always that question mark, that blank space in our mind, that what if. You know what I mean? But as it relates to what you're presently holding, the experience that you've had, or maybe it was many experiences, write it out. The first, get a notebook and write it out. Just let your words purge your soul to a certain degree.
Okay.
You okay, sis?
Yes.
I'm sending you. Don't make me cry, y'all. YouTube gonna see me crying and stuff. They're gonna be like, "I'm gonna be crying." Don't, yo. Listen, my heart and my prayers are with you. You can do this. May you be strengthened. Let it out. You're gonna make me cry.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's just so heavy, you know. It's
it's heavy. That's why I'm telling you to let it go. It's heavy. You can't don't carry it no more. Let it go. Give yourself permission to let it go, mom. Give yourself permission to let it go.
okay.
And
Thank
it's gonna be imprinted in every part of your being. You know what I'm saying? And so give yourself permission to let it out and let it go.
Okay.
So everybody who's on here, we praying for you. You know what I'm saying? If you hit me up on the in the inbox, if you just want to talk offline, um, and step by step, you can make it through to the other side. There's,
Thank you.
like I said, plenty of people who unfortunately had similar experiences, and there's life afterwards. Be encouraged.
Yeah. It's just those, you know, those negative feelings of one not being good enough and being dirty and not being complete, you know.
Yep.
It's just a lot of heavy feelings that someone has.
And usually
And
it's projection. The person who violates usually tries to make the other person the one who to carry the shame. So you have to kind of give back those bags to the person of whom it belongs to. You know what I mean? That's not okay. This ain't mine. So it's just going through and sorting out and knowing what's yours and what's not yours, and know what to give back to others, and know what's yours to carry.
thank you so much.
You're welcome, sis. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And be decent and kind. You never know what people are going through. You never know who's behind the screen. You never know. This is why I try to keep my words on the up and up, because you never know. Words are healing. Words can hurt and words can heal. You know what I mean? You never know who's on the other side of the screen and what they may be going through. Sometimes we're just looking for answers. We're looking for a clue. We're looking for something, anything to hold on to help us through to the next place. Some people are really moving through some dark places. Um, so remember that when we're dealing with one another. So with that said, yeah, please heal. Yep, we have people who's broken in spirit. You know what I mean? And that's real. And that's real. So my prayer is that, we be strengthened in this time. We put the Most High in the forefront of all things that we do. We understand that we are loved, even though at sometimes we don't feel like it. We understand that people can do things to us, and that we carry it for a long time. But there comes a time where we can let it go. We can definitely let it go. So I thank everybody for tuning in. I'll come back again another time. I got 2 more weeks and one more test. So I gotta go do my homework now. All right, everybody have a blessed day. Yep, many prayers, y'all. Y'all stay focused, stay tuned in, man. It's that time. It's definitely that time. All right. Have a blessed day. Hold on, let me put a little thing here. Hold on. My fingers all in the thing. Hallelujah, everybody. Oh.